difficult discussion to have because this is very subjective. This is like doing a presentation on politics or religion. But anything goes, so I think the idea is to get all the views and all the opinions on the table and not necessarily to agree with each other. So subject being, why are little girls bossy? Why is it that little boys are assertive and confident and little girls are bossy? I've never yet heard a little boy being called bossy. And it's even in our literature. And it hadn't occurred to me why until I started getting into the subject. And it is very much related to the glass ceiling discussion. The glass ceiling phrase was first coined in 1979, and I think it's been abused a little since then. Sorry, I'm moving this down. It's been misinterpreted, it's been used as an excuse, it's been debated. But it does very much speak to some of the challenges that women find themselves in work. And I must start off by saying, not every woman and not in every workplace. Okay. That's part of the debate. There'll be women that'll say to you, I never encountered a glass ceiling. I personally didn't until I became CEO reporting to Dubai and then realized there was this hammer up there. Concrete ceiling, they used to call it. So it is very much an individual perspective, but we'll have a general discussion about it. Does anyone want to contribute in terms of whether you have or haven't encountered any kind of, and let's say it doesn't have to have been a ceiling you cannot get through. Has there ever been a challenge or a situation where you felt that there was just some reason to do with your sex that you didn't or did get a promotion? And it can be the other way around. It could be that you did get a promotion for that reason. I think we must remember something. Remember that men wrote the business language and men wrote the business rules that still exist today. And so women are expected to adjust to that. And business will evolve, but it hasn't yet.
Your biggest challenge, although it's the glass ceiling, is the sticky feet, and not so much your own, but from other women reinforcing the idea that women can't, because it's this very testosterone-driven industry that we work in.
Absolutely, and I think, look, the problem of women who've made it who don't necessarily support women beneath them is not going to go away. It's as much a male problem. So every time this comes up, I say, well, you know what? We've got to get over it. And the same as if you have a boss like you had, and I was telling Jackie earlier, I had an Afrikaans boss that I inherited at a company that shall remain nameless, who called me in and said, I just want you to know I have no problem with women. I thought, oh, here we go. He said, I understand women fully. I've got a wife, 3 daughters, and 2 bitch dogs. I was gone 2 months later. But at the end of the day, it was either you stay and you deal with Donnie, and you're never going to get him over his prejudices, or you leave. And it's the same with those women. If it's insurmountable and they're blocking your progress in the organization, you have to leave. You can't expect people to change, you have to change yourself. But I think there is a lot to be said for all of us being authentic to ourselves and standing together. It's fact. Men are more political, they network better, they remember people that they met 10 years ago and they give them a call and say, help. We don't do it. And I think as the more we learn to do that, and it goes against our natural instinct, the better off we'll be.
I just want to challenge you on the notion of leaving.
Of
the notion of leaving.
Yeah.
I would have left tenfold if you know, I had had the same response. And I think the thing that's always been at the back of my mind is that if I leave, it's not going to change the system. You know, I will challenge the system for as long as it takes to make it a better place for other people to work. So it does take some very clever maneuvering, and there's nothing wrong with politics. I agree with whoever said it earlier. But leaving for me is not an option. It's working very hard within a system that has endless possibilities.
And personally, I think if it's your peers, you work hard. So you don't necessarily pour the tea when it gets put in front of you for the 55th time as the marketing director. And you know, and you do challenge the fact that all the team, this is what happened. All the team getaways were to soccer matches. Excuse me, where's the opera? Just 1 out of 10. I just find it's a challenge for me to take on colleagues that are all my peers or beneath me. It's just if it's that boss up there that is insurmountable, it's difficult. I did some mentoring to engineers that were doing their holiday vacations on the mines. And it was disheartening for me because out of my group of 6 when we broke away, 4 of the girls were saying they were going to give up the engineering studies because they said, I can't work in that environment. And they were serious. I cannot work in that environment. I will not. I'm going to go and do something else. And I had to say to them, it's not only on the mines that you have engineers. If you really can't deal with it, then go and be an engineer in a building construction business or a, but it was very disheartening for me. So I think there are a lot of challenges in terms of insurmountables for people. But let's move along. You may or may not know of Carly, but Carly was the CEO of Hewlett Packard, one of the first female CEOs in a big Fortune 500 company. And she in 2002 said very loudly and vociferously and on numerous occasions, there is no glass ceiling. She'd got there without any hassle. In 2005, she said that was a dumb thing to say. And what she'd realized, and she only realized that when she got to being CEO, was she realized that the business rules are not the same for men and for women. And she realized she couldn't change them in her organization. She actually got fired, but it's not because she said that. Who else said what? Indra Nooyi's one of my favorite CEOs. She's the CEO of PepsiCo, and she talked about there is a glass ceiling, but if you can see through something, you can get through it, which I found quite profound. Condoleezza Rice is very much an advocate of young talent and of encouraging, to the point of something you've made, of encouraging people to fight the glass ceiling and to get through it. Irene, you probably all know of, and she's the one who also talked about it being reinforced with concrete on occasion, and then Nikki Newton-King. Now, when I alluded to environments, I was on a panel with Russell Loebscher when he was still at the JSE. And Russell was saying, and he won't mind me quoting him, he was saying adamantly, there is no glass ceiling. In my organization, women are equal to men 100%. Except his organization consists of all of chartered accountants. So, yeah. Equal and driven by liberal, and it's a lot easier to be able to say I have an equal organization than perhaps in different environments. Women make up 42% of the workforce. I can also tell you they make up 53% of matriculants, and 65% of A scores that got in matric were women. I just had to say that, because there were about 2 men in the room. Okay. But the percentage of female executives is dropping. 40% of the JSE-listed companies have no female directors, not one. 16% of directorships are held by women, but that's a mythical fact because 14% of those are non-executive directors. That doesn't count. I was engaging with the CEO of a very big company in this country. And he said to me, I don't need women on my board. I've got a token legal one. She's okay. Guess what? The business is very successful. That there are stats starting to come through that with 2 female members on a board, those companies are outperforming their competitors by 10%. Early day stats, but there's not a lot of case studies. And as the momentum grows, that will become evident. It's obvious. We think differently, we lead differently, we behave differently. Diversity is strength, and we'll get into that in a moment. And only 4% of CEOs in South Africa are women. But we are a hang of a lot better than the USA, believe it or not. Of the Fortune 500 companies, there are 12 female CEOs. So this is not a South Africa problem. So hopefully that goes away. And when our children are taking their children to the window, they're not making the same remarks. I'm going to skip this discussion in the interest of time. So I want to have a bit of a discussion about what kinds of glass ceilings are there, because there are some of them subtle, some of them obvious. The one we've talked about, most of the ones we've talked about today are obvious ones. It's like, oh, here it is. But sometimes they're a lot less subtle. How about the golf course? How many of you play golf? How many of you have peers or bosses, guys that play golf together. So you don't think they aren't discussing business on the golf course, are they? You're not part of that conversation. How many of your peers or the men in your organization go drinking together? Probably quite a lot, even if you don't even know about it. So there is this old boys club syndrome that you, and again, this is personal perspective, we're going to have discussion. I just think you've got to deal with it. So I'm not saying everyone has to take up golf, that's not the point. But just be aware that those conversations are happening. And find your own way of doing your own bit of networking and information seeking. For example, secretaries are a wealth of information. And secretaries like to talk to women. Prejudices, sexism, those are pretty obvious ones. Remuneration, fact. Women are paid 70 cents for every rand paid to every man in South Africa for the same job. In the USA, it's 77 cents. Fact. So what are we going to do about it? There is nothing you can do about it until you become a CEO and you fix it. So you deal with it. You have to work harder to get the same promotion. You're going to be paid less. That's what it is. Is it fair? No. Is it going to change in the next 10 years? No. It's going to change when all of you head up organizations and commit to making change. I changed it at Simba, and I wasn't very popular. But it was a process. Resilience, women are proven to, on a resilience score in South Africa, women, I think with 500 managers tested, women scored 56% to men's 40%. That's a surprise. I don't think most gentlemen out there would say that women are more resilient than they are. But we are. So, a little bit of discussion about the kinds. Are there any out there that I haven't mentioned? What kind of subtle glass ceilings could one encounter? Or have you?
The challenges that the women face going into Africa is quite challenging because our colleagues in Africa, our women colleagues in Africa, don't receive the privileges that we receive as women in South Africa. I just want to make that very clear. We are very fortunate in South Africa because there's people fighting for us and we're fighting for ourselves. In SADC, it's not the case. I did a lot of training there, and you sit there and you get the women in the passages asking you for some information, and the men are sitting in those training rooms sleeping. I just want to say that was the challenges that I was facing, and I was also with colleagues, and they don't take you as a woman serious. In our case, I had the similar situation where my boss also did the same to me. I decided to stay and make a difference in this organization that's very conservative and where women has always been pushed down. And I think, and I do come from the South African Reserve Bank, and since Jill Marcus walked in that door, things really started changing for us as women in that organization. So I'm one of those people that just made the decision, I'm not leaving. Either I work above you, over you, next to you, but I'm not leaving. I'm here to stay and make a difference for my colleagues that's in the same situation that where I am. What I did is I actually went contracting to the Reserve Bank to see if I can get out of the politics, the sexism, all this discrimination against the women. But then I decided I had to get back permanently into the institution to actually take these people forward. I still had to resign for maternity leave. And then I wasn't sure if I'm going to report to the same boss. And I'm not talking long time ago. I'm talking in 1991. So the reality is that if we don't stay as leaders to fight the fight for the people that's coming and our daughters, no one is going to make that difference for us.
Thank you, that's great. I think you touch on something that's very important. Yes, we are very privileged as South Africans, and all of us in this room are very privileged. I started a non-profit organization a couple of years ago called Great No Matter, but because, I don't know if you realize, but how many millions of young girls out there in the townships have never met a businesswoman. Never. So they're going to get their matric, they're going to go to university, and they don't have a role model. They're going to walk into their first job blind and get blinded by all the politics and the this and the that and the sexism and the... And I think it's something I put out to you, that if you in some way, through the various organizations out there that are doing these outreach and these mentorship programs, can give something back. I did a couple of visits to schools, Aurora High School in Soweto, where the questions they asked me made me want to cry. The maternity thing reminded me. They asked me if they had to resign if they fell pregnant. Seriously. Really, some of the questions made me want to cry. I thought, how can you not know this? But how would they know it? I asked them if they'd ever been out of Soweto, and the answer was no. So just something to bear in mind. Okay, so what the article talks about is what women do wrong in the work environment. Okay. Let the men see you sweat. So it talks about women not having enough confidence. We ask too many questions instead of just looking knowledgeable. Fidget, break eye contact because we're nervous. We display too many negative emotions, angerness, bitterness, spite. And please don't cry. Article written by a woman. Make excuses. So women seem to think that if they explain something away, it'll all be okay. And I think goes with this is probably the angle of so many women that are perceived to be talking too much around a problem. And then she talks about being the B word. You don't have to do that. Just be calm and assertive. And then women making decisions from a lack of mentality, so too emotional.
This is going to sound aggressive, but I work for a mine, so I need to show a little bit of aggression every so often. I am sick and tired of all of those 5 points because I am confident, I'm eloquent, I, very much to the point that you made, maintain eye contact, and I do know what I'm talking about when I get up on the stage, and I do deliver quite, I get to the point, I'm abrupt, and I do what I need to do because I've been told those are the weaknesses, and so as a diligent woman, I'm focused on mending those weaknesses. But in the process of achieving my objective of overcoming those weaknesses, I have now gotten a new label. I'm the lady with the iron balls. Look, I check every morning and there are no balls, thank goodness. But so then I come back and I say, but you've just told me those are weaknesses, and now, because I made sure that I've overcome them, I now have iron balls. So what is it? So now I say we need to redefine what a businesswoman is. We are emotional animals. When I feel like crying, damn it, I'm gonna bawl my eyes out, wash my face, and then call the next meeting and get on with it. If I need to complain a little bit, maybe I'll complain a little bit, but I'll keep it to a 5-minute or a 10-minute complaint. So I'm saying we need to come back and re-challenge those weaknesses and redefine what the look and feel of a businesswoman is. And it's about time that we stamp our ground and say, well, men, why don't you have a men's leadership conference and decide how you are gonna work with women who are empowered, who know what they want, but they may once or twice cry a little bit because, hey, I've got hormones raging through me, what can I do?
Thank you. I could have planted you there. It's exactly what I wanted you to say. I think the word is authenticity. We need authentic businesswomen that are true to themselves. And if you're the kind of woman that doesn't cry, that's okay. You don't have to cry because you're a woman. But you need to be authentic and not change yourself entirely to become a man. And so many women do it. And unfortunately, there's so many bad role models out there. Chat about it over lunch and tell me, of the 5 best-known CEOs in this country, how many of them are married with children? So how many of them turned themselves into men to get where they had to go? And that's what has to change. There have to be role models of women who can do it all, who can have balance between work and home and be a CEO. And there are a lot of organizational reasons why, certainly in the last 20 years, women had to give up stuff to get places. And that is changing quite rapidly. We've alluded to it. We're different. And different is good. Women care and men take charge, and that's not wrong. Women are transformational leaders and men are transactional leaders. I don't know if you can get the subtle difference. I was going to go into it, but I'm not in the interest of time. But interpersonal skills, hard work, contacts, and I'll list some more lists. That's what women are good at. That's what they bring to an organization. Men will always be better political animals, and that's one area we have to work at, but we're never going to be as good as they are at it. Strengths, and there are, you go Google this, there are 100 studies proving this. This is not Lauren's opinion. Women are better at teamwork. Women get more out of teams than men do. Fact. Why? Because they care, they nurture, they bring the team together. It's for the good of the project, not for their own self-esteem. And to be the boss and to be the hero. And I'm not here to man back, so see, it's a women's conference. So, women are better communicators. Believe it or not, women are better at dealing with conflict. We tend to avoid conflicts as a natural instinct. But once women learn, and that you learn that in business, because most of us didn't learn it as children, once you learn how to deal with conflict, you are better at it than men are. Because of our emotional empathy. Mentoring and coaching, resilience I've talked about, and just more likely to do things for the organization, for the team, for the staff. For the results too, but more likely to be collaborative. Hawthorne said, and I like this so much, that women are the invisible glue that hold an organization together. And if you go and look at the male-dominated organizations, you can see the difference. Okay. I'll end off and then we'll do a few questions. I would say, Lauren's advice, achieve. As I said earlier on, accept that you have to work harder. Work harder, be better. That's no point in denying the fact. There's an attitude, and it's a subtle attitude that you need. Stand up for yourself, but then there are times when you have to do like Nigeria and just hang in there. You know what? Don't say, I'll never pour the tea. Pour the tea sometimes. It's really okay. But don't pour the tea every time. Awareness speaks to political savvy. Be aware of what is going on in your organization. Don't sit at your desk and work hard and think you're going to get a promotion. You won't. Because the men are out there networking, politicking, kicking ass and doing everything they do so well. Okay. Adapt to the environment. Sometimes you can be more have a different attitude to others and be authentic. We've talked about that. And some of you may not even know what your authentic self is anymore because you've changed so much to fit in with the business world that you're in. So spend some time thinking about what are you at home versus what are you at work and why are they so different, if they are. They should be different, but they shouldn't be two different, completely different people. Because I promise you, the person that you're becoming at work, you will take home. So there was the quote that Sheryl Sandberg actually said. And what she's saying is, yes, little girls are bossy, and that's a good thing. Which is a whole different take on my initial reaction to, but hey, that's not fair. How come little girls are called bossy? She's saying, they should be because they are, because that makes them such great leaders.